Um, Welcome. Here we are, another episode of Music&Mezcal with the one and only SOPHIA DANAI. How are you today?
I'm wonderful.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
This is a fun treat for me. I have been a big fan of yours since your 2019 release.
Oh.
Realize.
Which one was that? Yeah. Last one.
And then had the pleasure of going back through, your earlier two albums, your 2013
Thank you.
offering was Wishing Well.
That's right.
Which you also had at the time you had a magazine under the same name.
Whoa.
And then you had the 2018 Love Royale, right?
That's right.
Was it?
Yeah. Or was it
2016,
yeah.
I think Love Royale was.
Yeah.
And then 2019 was, yeah.
That's right.
So going back, you're looking at those three albums, EPs, however you want to classify them, all very unique. And it's, the story of your career, I think is really quite something. You're starting, I think I remember reading that there was a YouTube video that someone saw where you were like in the basement of your parents' house.
Yes.
Playing on like a little organ tone or something like that.
That's part of the story. I made a little video. I had those home organs that you could like do the beats and do everything. So I did a couple of videos of songs with those. And then that sort of really was like, that's why I started working with Chin. I mean, that's not why I started working with Chin, but I think he saw that and saw like a certain type of creativity and then liked my voice and wanted to meet with me. And it sort of got our music relationship kind of started was like that kind of little, like, I think spark of creativity and just kind of, what would be the word for that? It was like a quirky kind of like unique thing, I guess, at that time. And I had been meeting him, like, I met him, remember when there used to be Thirsty Thursdays? Did you ever go to that? At Calabash.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I met him and then he checked out my stuff and then that's the story of that video.
Yeah. Were you you were doing stuff at Calabash? I think I saw a couple of your gigs there at Calabash.
Yes.
When I think DJ Jan was still working at Calabash.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
I just saw him last night, actually.
He wasn't even working there yet.
Oh, really?
I met Jan. Jan and I were collaborators and bandmates for years, and we met at a gym when he was DJing for a workout class.
Oh, crazy.
So he has come a long way.
Yeah.
And that's how we connected. And I was trying to move out of, like, I was trying to basically figure out a way to do my live show in a really more effective way with less people and with like also that honored the songs a little bit more, because I was kind of, when I started doing Love Royale, a lot of it was a little bit more electronic, right? So then we started hanging out and trying some shows, and then we were writing together and stuff. So that was like that's how we met. And then he started working at Calabash after, and then it all,
And then you guys obviously worked together on Realize.
Yes.
So it's funny. I had, I'm a big fan of your lyrics.
Thank
big
you.
fan of lyrics in general.
Oh, wow. Thanks.
I find that what I really like about them is they're so like, you listen to them, they're so deeply personal, but they're also very approachable and universal. I actually had a guest on the other day where one of your tracks came up. I mentioned it, and I tried to quote you, and I butchered it.
Okay. What song?
I completely blanked it. I was like, I love this quote from SOPHIA DANAI. I don't know if you know the album. It's from her track Daughter, and I went. The line goes like this, and then I completely just went blank. And I was like, it's a good song. You should listen to it.
That's like, I love just the shout out.
But it's the line, one day you're gonna have a daughter, and she's gonna come crying to her father about all the filthy names that you called her, and you know that you're part of the problem. And
that's really sticking it to him.
Yeah. What I love about that line is it does, like I said, it sounds deeply personal, but it's also just a beautiful indictment of like toxic masculinity and everything that like is part of that just realm. Can you talk a little bit about that song?
I'm just kind of trying to come back to the moment that I was writing it and where I was at. I feel like I felt think I was like, the music industry itself is so male dominated as well. And I think when I got to the point, when I was writing, especially like Realize, I felt like I had finally sort of come out of a place where I was, like I had really, I feel, tapped into my own voice, you know? And then looking back on my journey, I was like, I had like some anger, I think, of like, why did it, it shouldn't have been that hard, like to get there. It shouldn't have been as sidetracked, because it's just inevitable when you start to get into the music industry, especially when you're really young. And, you know, when I first started, there was a lot of talks with like labels and things. Like at that time, labels were much more a part of the equation. Like now I feel like it's different, like the way that trajectory worked. But when I was there, it was like, and it was just a lot of like kind of working out in, you know, like this is sort of what works. This is what they're looking for. So you're really trying to come with your authenticity. And at the same time, just so aware of like these sort of gimmicks and things that are being encouraged and picked up, and whether it's just straightforward, them saying it or you just picking up on it too. Right. So yeah, I think at that point when I was writing, that type of music, I just had this feeling of like, had some anger, and it was like, I finally felt empowered enough and healthy enough to express it in that way, you know, and I could tap into, that part of me that was a little bit like, you know, a little bit like, fuck, like, why was that? Like I almost wish I had like a woman role model when I was 20, like a really like a woman who had like a seasoned woman in my life at that time. Cause I was just surrounded by men. Like it's just like, we're all in this system, you know? And I think like, when I was finally getting to the point of writing those songs, I felt, and it wasn't only in the music industry, right? It was also in my personal relationships too. It was just the idea that you, you know, like the way we treat women is really indicative of all the other aspects of our lives too, you know, and it's, like, and especially even now becoming a mother, I'm like, I think about that song, I'm just reflecting, and even now being a mother and like seeing how mothers in this society are also treated. It's like, whoa, we really have a lot of work to do. In my opinion,
shoebox,
you know,
like put them categorize them.
Yes.
Yeah. Your mother, this means this.
Yes.
Mother has a very
and we have
narrow definition.
Exactly. And we're like, I feel like as women, there's so many like roles, you know, it's like it's almost like the innocent virgin, and then, you know, that sort of like idealized, but then also, you know, you're supposed to be like sexy and be really in your sexual empowerment, but then you're judged for that. And then, you know, it's like, now you're a mother. You
can't be a prude, but you can't be a whore.
It's like, you have to find that balance. You know, I was, anyways, even just watching that Britney Spears documentary recently, it's just that.
I haven't seen it. Is it good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is good. And just her story arc is just really, it's just, there's so many stories like that of women being built up and destroyed, and built up and destroyed. And like once you're sort of become a mother, or once you're sort of in this category, then it's like you get really like, it's, you know, then all of a sudden you can't explore yourself as like your sexuality and your sexual empowerment, because now you're this like mother figure, you know, like, I don't know. I just see that a lot in culture, but also like the psyche. Like I've just even felt it and witnessed it in my own psyche of how it feels really sometimes difficult to move between identities, you know, but yet we all have those different parts of ourselves that need to be expressed, you know, and need to be explored. And it's like one archetype might be taking a certain dominance at like some point in your life, but it doesn't mean that those other parts aren't there.
Have you found that becoming a parent how have you found it? It has to affect it because life affects us. How have you found it's affected your creative process, your writing?
Honestly, it's been so all encompassing for me. I haven't really been able to give a lot of time to my like creativity in the last.
You mean being a parent is time consuming?
Yeah.
Guys.
By the way, if you didn't know.
PSA here, guys, if you're thinking about
like, I really thought, I had people be like, when you have the newborn, like they're going to sleep all the time. You can be writing songs. You can be like, and I was just like, during that first year, I was like, yeah, that was breastfeeding. And no, yeah. I mean, also I feel for me, like when I was pregnant, I finished a record that I was working on that I started in 2019. So I have a record that's like completely finished. And the thing that I did, I would say, when I was like, what I worked on in like, while he was in the first year was things like getting it mastered. I did like, some content for it, some photos, that's what I, like that part felt, I was just like in a slow completion process of something that I had started in 2019, and working with the time and the energy that I had. So I think I've written a couple songs and I just sing to him constantly. I'm constantly making up songs. It's the first time actually in my life, I feel that I've been just singing. I mean, probably since I was a kid, but since I was like singing and like not feeling the need to just document and like, potentially monetize everything that I'm doing. You know what I mean? Like I'll get a lot of ideas and I'll get a lot of things and I'm sort of like, it's just for now.
It's just for now.
It's just for now. And if there's something that I really like, I will record it. Like if I feel like it was a special thing, I have definitely like recorded things and I've recorded him and I've recorded us singing together.
Do you have like a backlog of like 15-second audio recordings of just ideas that pop into your head?
I have so many of those. Like I will never get through them all.
I got this great idea.
I have years of just voice notes on my phone. Years. Like I will never listen to all of them. I mean, sometimes I just like randomly go and I just like pick one and I'm like,
pick one.
Yeah. And I'm like, what was there? It's so funny. Like unless I kind of like unless the song really like is sticking with me, I don't tend to go, like I go back to the ones that grab me, and then that give me that itch of like, okay, I am going to keep on fleshing this out, and then some songs come really fast.
I read an article that you did. It was a print interview. Don't remember who it was. But it was, I think you must have sat down. I think it was for your first records. It was like 10 years ago.
Okay.
And you mentioned that you mentioned Bob Dylan in the interview because I think you said you're talking about how when you first started writing songs, you approached it from a songwriter because you weren't that confident about your singing capabilities.
Yeah.
And you were like, if I could be like Bob Dylan, who's, everyone knows he's a shit singer, but he's an amazing songwriter.
Right.
You didn't say shit singer. You said not a super strong singer or something like that.
Yeah. Which now I look back at it and I'm like, you know what? He does have an amazing voice. Like
he's got his charm.
He's got his amazing voice. Like that's surprised. It's like a very, I feel like young songwriter to say, because now when I think of Bob Dylan, I would never think of him as not a good singer. Because
I would. So I'm
okay,
like,
well,
so you can rest assured with that.
Yeah,
I love his voice, but I don't.
His voice too. It's not like a necessarily like he's not like a classically like because I feel like I had in my head like the best, Mariah Carey, Whitney Houston, Lauryn Hill, like all these like super can do all the run, like all the things, right? I wasn't at that point with my voice at that time. I mean, I did a lot of work on my voice since then, and I feel much more confident in my voice now. But definitely, when I started, I had a lot of insecurities about my voice.
Yeah.
Just the control I had. I didn't feel like I had control. I felt like I was in the studio and I was like, at any point, I was almost like guessing. I was like, was that off key? Was that like, you know what I mean? I was really not able to be confident. But now I look back at that and I think so much of that was just my confidence and my comfort in the room. Like feeling intimidated by producers and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
That's fair.
I mean, that's like a real,
when you're
like
a 20-year-old kid in the room for a bunch of producers.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I'm guessing. I've never been a 20-year-old kid in a room full of producers that wanted to hear me sing.
I think the problem is like, for me, I was like, I get like, there was this like, I wanted them to think I was good.
Right.
And I think when there's that element there, it really affects your performance. I mean, how could it not? Once you kind of shift that perspective, and it's more that like, this is what you're good, and you're meant to be doing this. Like you've like owned that. And now it's more just about how can I get the best performance out? And you just feel this, like, I belong in this room. Yeah. Totally different energy of creating with people, but.
Do you approach songwriting differently now than you did when you were a 20-year-old kid?
I do. Well, the last record I made was really an amazing experience because...
The last record you released, or the last one you made?
Made. No, it's not released
So
yet.
the one that no one's heard yet.
Nobody's heard it except a little group of people in Salt Spring that I did a show for last summer where I did all the new songs. But basically what happened was it was Junior T, he produced it. Mm-hmm. And he's from Toronto, and we had met over the years. He's an amazing producer for anybody who doesn't know him. He has a record out called Studio Monk that's just incredible. It's with a bunch of different artists. Anyway, so we had met over the years, and then basically I just had this, like, I was like, I need to work with you. Like, I had worked with him a couple times in Toronto. I'm like, I want to do my next record with you. Mm-hmm. I want, and so so he flew to Vancouver, and I set up a studio in my apartment. I invited like some of my favorite musicians to come and be there for some of the writing sessions. Jan was there as well. And we just like had conversations about what was happening in that moment for me in my life. And not even just for me. We just had like, obviously that was a focus, but also we were just having conversations about life. Mm-hmm. And then songs were really born from those conversations. And it was like the songs were born, they were recorded, like we used the vocal, like, I did a few takes. Sometimes I would just improvise on the spot on the mic. We'd pick our little favorite parts, and like that was the song. So it was like this whole record was basically written in session. Like I didn't spend a lot of time, like it was very much like we're talking, we're having conversation, we're in a vibe. I'm on the mic. I'm like, I have little ideas that I'm working on, and then I get on the mic and then I'll do it. And then maybe another idea pops in as I'm singing. And so it was like this, like, writing intentionally, a little bit of just almost like a channeling of the energy that was in the room at that moment. And then, then the fine tuning and the editing and the arranging happened after. But like the most of the vocals, like the heart of the song was complete.
Is it done? It's done. Have you given it the car stereo test yet? Yeah. So it's ready to go.
It's done.
Yeah. So when do we get to hear it?
We get to hear it.
We as in me.
Yes.
Me,
well,
myself,
I can send it to you. I can send it to you early. No, yeah, I'm planning on starting this fall.
Cool.
Yeah.
Is there going to be some dates associated with that? Starting?
Well, I have my show booked at Mateata in Salt Spring, September 21st. So by then, and then I'm hoping to book some other shows like around that time, around fall. And obviously I kind of like, I feel like I stepped out of the game, as they call it, for like a little bit of a hot minute.
The ecosystem in Salt Spring is different than it is on Salt Spring, I should say.
Yeah.
Than it is here.
It was like COVID.
It's gorgeous over there.
Happened. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Is that when you moved over there?
It was. I moved like as things were kind of dying, like 2022. So I moved. Okay. Yeah, like I basically had my son in 2022, and then February, and then in that September we moved. Yeah, because it was like still, it wasn't like completely not weird yet. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like. I mean, still, it's never.
Oh, I worked in hospitality through it all. It was weird.
It was weird. So I think we can all agree, and like it's still, yeah. So that I feel like also when that happened, I kind of just like, yeah. We mixed the record virtually, and with Slaka, the Beat Child, he was the one that mixed it. And
had you done that before? Anything like that?
No.
What was that like?
There was this incredible program that I could play it through my studio speakers, and we were on Zoom all together, but then the actual like mixing session was coming through his interface by this like it was
crazy.
It was
technology.
We were hearing what he was hearing as he was mixing, and then so it would be like I would just have it on and doing some things and just listening, and then as he would work we would talk and have notes, and then and then I went there. When did I go there? I guess late 2021 I went to Toronto for 2 weeks to just like do all like any recording that needed to be done. And I recorded a couple new songs that I had written on guitar, and we finished the mixing there. Like we completed it because we felt we needed to be like in person for the last final touches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just mentioned guitar.
Yes.
Your one of the things I love about your released 3-album catalog is the just for ease, I'm going to call them all albums. I know that one of them was an EP, and maybe I can't.
Now they're albums.
Now they're albums. Okay, they were released as EPs. But you're like, retroactive. They might call that an album.
Because now they consider an album like 6 songs. But when I first put it out, it wasn't. I don't think it was like that. I think it was like 6 songs was an EP. But since Spotify happened and all that stuff, it changed. Yeah.
There's quite if you listen to them, especially if you listen to them with a close ear, there's quite a range of influences in them. Yes. From Motown to pop to electronic to some folk in there. You can hear a lot of different stuff coming through. Mm-hmm. Is that do you pull consciously from that eclectic mix, or is it just like what you grew up with and that's what comes out?
Yeah, like I don't know if it's because I'm a Gemini, or I don't know what's in the stars for me, but I feel like I've always listened to a range of music, and I always want to do like all the styles of music that I love. It's really hard for me to just be like, I'm this artist, you know? And I would say the last 3 albums I've done definitely like demonstrated there's like a lot of like a wide range of It's honestly just because I get pulled by something at the time, like probably a song or an artist that I'm like super inspired by, and then I'll write something and it'll have that flavor, and I listen to a lot of different types of music, like all the time. So it's always something a little different. Believe me, I've actually really like tried to make something where I'm like, I just want this to be like one thing.
I just want this to be this genre. Yeah.
And
it's boring.
yeah, exactly. Like, so it just hasn't gone that way for me. And I love the idea of just trying on different genres, It's fun.
I think that's one of the things that's so amazing about music. I've talked with a lot of people on the show about that. I often refer to music as the true universal language. People call it science or math, but yeah, I call it music.
Totally.
Because it transcends boundaries and genres. You have worked with like quite a list of, you've collaborated with quite a list of different artists. I won't try name dropping some of them because I'm going to probably pronounce one of them wrong or miss 2 or 3 of them.
People will come for you.
But there's been a lot. Do you actively seek out certain genres of artists you want to collab with? Or is it just more like, I like that artist, or does it happen more organically, like you meet at a gym?
That was the most organic one yet. Oh my gosh. I think it's pretty organic, honestly. It's just been very organic. And I think like it's always just been mostly in the studio or sending, just maybe it's me, maybe it's the producer that's in touch with them, or sending songs and getting inspired. And it just kind of, sometimes there's like a spark of like, this person would sound really great. But like Shad, I'm just thinking, I don't know, that one came to mind. And that one
Shad, you worked with on your first album, right?
The first, yeah. And that was like, he was meeting Chin and working with Chin for the first time, and I was working with Chin, and so I wasn't actually even there when he recorded that. It was like they were having a session, and then Chin played him that, and And
Yeah,
then
your last two albums were self-produced, right?
My last two albums, well, like co-produced. I definitely was, the Love Royale was co-produced with Matt Brevner, and then the last one was co-produced with Jan and Ryan Worsley. So it was like the three of us really produced that one together.
What was it like going from sort of, you know, being on the ticket of someone else's production, like, you know, you're working with Chin as a producer, going from that to sort of taking the mantle to having more control? Was that a conscious thing, or was it just a natural evolution? And was it a struggle to take?
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, I will say like working with Matt was really amazing because he really encouraged me to learn how to just get better at producing myself. And I would bring like vocal ideas. I would like got a lot more confident. And I think I actually took a course. That's what I did. I took a course in Logic around that time. And then I was able to just like really get my vocal style that I liked. And of course, like I learned so much from working with Chin, and then I sort of took like, because he's an amazing producer and he has a very specific style of recording vocals, and I sort of like took from that and then created my own like style of doing it the way that I liked. And it was so empowering because, like I spoke about at the beginning, with the kind of that feeling of wanting to get it right for somebody. I mean, that's just something I think I always like work. It's like wanting to be like, you know, like wanting to impress and wanting to be like seen as good. Whereas when I was recording myself at home and doing my vocals, it became a lot more, even the writing process, right? Like it just became much more intimate and like real to me. And I could really explore my voice on the mic, which is different than when you're just singing in your room, like the art of recording your voice and all the things that you can do with it. Like I just really found this freedom in like playing with my voice and using it in different ways, you know? And then that just continued. And I feel like the last record that I haven't put out yet, like that I really, you know, even though Junior was recording me, because I had spent all that time, you know, recording myself, I just felt free, much more free in like my ability to just try things. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Like it was fine, you know? And same thing with Ryan, like a lot of the songs that I did that I ended up recording with Ryan, I had already recorded on my own, and then we like redid them at the studio. That was a really cool experience to have too, because I feel like that was like the most polished record I've done. Like in the sense that I had really worked on the songs. I like sifted through them. I did multiple versions, and like, I really like, you know what I mean? Like I kind of like hammered them out to the point of like, okay, now this is, and then I went to the studio, and then we like had days in the studio, you know what I mean? And like, we had specific days where we were doing the vocals, and cause he has a big studio. So that was its own really cool, fun experience. Cause that's sort of what you picture when you think about doing like a legitimate record or whatever. Right. So I was happy to have that experience too. It's just, I have to say, like the last way that I did it with Junior has probably been my favorite so far. Cause it was like, even though we were just in my apartment, there was just something so like fluid about it and not overthought. Like, I feel like we really captured a energy, you know, but that is from all that exploring. I think I was able to do that because it's a journey. It's a journey, right. You know? Yeah. So
you're only able to be there because of being here.
Yes.
Yeah.
And one thing I've learned is like, I'm so happy I did all of that. I mean, I still like recording my own vocals on my own and stuff and having that time, but I really do love collaborating now, you know, like I really love that process of somebody else recording me, and I don't have to think about pressing buttons or anything like that. I can just like fully be in the moment. You know, now I feel like I've come to that place where I can be there comfortably, you know, whereas
but having that background, now having the technical background of knowing more about the process
totally
enables you to have the more freedom
to say what you want and say what you like and say what you think would sound good. And you have the language, like that was, exactly.
Did you find that aspect of music production was it a struggle, or did it come easily? Being someone from a singer-songwriter background, going into the production and learning that aspects of it. You mentioned taking a course.
Yeah, the course really helped. The interest really helps. Like I think if you're interested in it, it's easy. It's not too complicated.
Desire dominates.
Exactly. Yeah. Like if you have like a real interest in being a part of that aspect of things, like there's a certain point with that side of things where I'm just kind of like, that's all I need to know. Like, I'm not really like, I'm not one of those producers who I'm like, I need to get like, Jan is very technical. Like he wants to know, you know, and
He
even Junior, like, yeah, he's like a producer's producer, you know, Junior too. It's like, they're like, you know, they're getting into all of those little details and the sound and the samples and the thing. And I'm like, you know, as long as I can get the idea and really like, my vocals are the most important thing to me, you know, of how to, like, I like to be able to produce my vocals really well. Then, you know, then I can work with someone else. But I think having the language to work with somebody else is obviously important. I mean, yes, like learning that. But I mean, as far as like all the, I also am like, once I like somebody and what they do, I have a certain aspect of like, this is kind of what I'm going for. This is the vibe.
Right.
Like,
yeah. So you mentioned, you know, the experience of just recording your vocals just in your apartment. Mm-hmm. But you've recorded in Toronto. Yeah. Recorded here in Vancouver. I think you've also done some recording in Los Angeles, right?
Yes. Yeah.
What's it like kind of flitting in and out of those three scenes as a young artist, being thrust into the Los Angeles scene as a Canadian kid? And then
I was so green when I was in Los Angeles, so it all seemed really...
There's a lot happening there.
Oh, yeah. And I was very like, it was super, you know, what's the word? Just, I felt quite intimidated and also excited. And I was like so excited to be there and like be a part of it. And I had a lot of fun writing with some of the artists there, like really creative people from all around the world. You know, there was a lot of people from New York. There was, like the level of talent in Los Angeles was just really amazing. Mm-hmm. And just all the things that are happening there and all the different types of artists. And there's an energy there of people really not being afraid to be bold, like about what their dreams are and say what their dreams are and really believe it's going to happen. Like I think also when you're in LA, they aren't at that, like the center of the industry in a sense, you know, when you're in those places where you're in like a center, the belief that you can, you know, like people have these big dreams and they're like, like I met this person, like, you know, you're in it. Yeah. So I really fed off that energy. I think it was really inspiring for me. And also, one of my songs we recorded in one of Marilyn Monroe's old houses.
Oh, cool.
Daytime Dreaming, which was super cool.
One of Marilyn Monroe's old houses, rich people.
One of them. Exactly. And that was that. There was like some energy there. There was a vibe there. I had the best time with the two producers and writers that I worked with. Like we had a lot of fun. And I went there a lot with Chen. He had a team out there that he worked with. So it was just like long days in the studio. We didn't really, we did a little bit of hanging in LA. But for the most part, it was just like studio rat central. Just like being in the studio like all day. And what I loved about that too was just seeing people who were seasoned write a song fast and it be good. You know what I mean? Like it was like,
how about this? Let's try this. Let's try this. It's like that scene in,
my God.
In, have you ever seen the film Amadeus?
Yes.
So it's that scene when when Mozart first meets Salieri, and Salieri's got this like piece that he's been working on, and you know, Mozart just casually sits down and basically just rearranges the whole song within minutes.
Right.
He's and like, it's like so much. Goes like this. He goes, oh no, it's here. And he's not telling him where he thinks the song should go.
Right.
He's correcting the song. Like, you made a mistake in the composition. This is what the song is actually supposed to be.
Oh my God.
But like seeing people do that in real time, been like
yes,
modern day Mozarts. You're like, what is this?
literally. One of my favorite his name was Danny. What was his last name? But he went on to work with Kendrick, and he went on to do some incredible. And I was not surprised at all. He was just like, he was so full of ideas constantly. He was just, it was like brimming, like he had to get them out, and yeah, just Chin had a team there was like 4 of them that constantly worked together. And it was really cool to be in that atmosphere of just, we're here to write. And so what's inspiring us? What are we talking about? That word, that, and then feeding off, and then the demo being done and the vocals being so, it just was amazing to watch like seasoned people. And then, Toronto also same kind of thing. It's just like a different energy, of the city, but also a similar kind of like hunger, and a similar kind of, like people are there to make things happen. There's like that energy in Toronto. It's like people want to, like they get excited and they, I think, respect drive.
Right.
So if you are showing that and there's a connection, then, Yeah,
there's a weird, like, sometimes I feel like the culture shift between East and West is bigger than North and South.
Oh, definitely. Like us in LA.
Yeah. Like I feel culturally, like I go to Vancouver, I go to Seattle, I go to San Francisco, I go to Los Angeles, San Diego. I'm like, kind of feels like the same country. I go to Ottawa or Toronto and I'm like, this is a different country. This is a different
whole energy.
Yeah. But then you go from Toronto to New York and you're like, this kind of feels like I'm in the same country.
Same kind of energy.
Yeah.
They're much like more, Toronto's a little more like, I feel, like not cool in the sense of like cool, but like cool temperature wise, like in the sense of like they were not getting as like, they're not maybe as overly polite as we are as Canadian. How there's like the Canadian thing of being like, oh, like I feel like if they're working with you, that's an acknowledgement that, you're like obviously they really respect and think you're awesome. Whereas like here people will articulate that a lot. And I even feel like that more in LA, whereas like Toronto's a little more like, I don't know. I just feel like there's like a,
yeah, my favorite comparison between East Coast and West Coast is this. I heard it from a stand-up comedian, and I don't remember who it is. But it was saying like people on the East Coast, like someone from New York. I think it was specifically New York and Los Angeles. It's like if someone from New York drives by you and you got a flat tire and you don't know how to change your tire, they'll pull over, change your tire for you, and insult you the whole way. The whole entire time they're doing it, they'll insult you, but they'll get you back on the road and they'll pat you on the back and you'll go. Someone from Los Angeles will drive by and they'll like stop and go, "Oh, I'm so sorry. It's so bad for you." And then they'll keep going.
Legitimately, that has happened to me before in Vancouver.
I'm like, yeah, that's the difference. That's the difference.
That is exactly the difference. It's like you're so nice but unhelpful.
But yeah, you're also kind of a dick.
you're exactly. Yeah. So I mean, I've had really magical times recording everywhere. I think I've loved recording everywhere. I've loved recording.
Did you do much touring with the previous records?
I did a lot of touring with the last record. I think I've done the most touring with when I was with Jan and Mike Meroniuk. He as my guitar player. We went all over Italy. We did a 12 show run in Italy. We went to New York. My favorite. It was like amazing.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That's great.
I think I was like the most like warmth, immediate just reception I've ever, like they were just like, I remember nobody was on the dance floor and we were playing at this little bar called Pianos. And it was like we start and like they just came, like they were just like supportive, you know? And somebody told me once too, they were like, nobody needs to tell New York something is cool for them to support it because they are innovators there. Right. So they don't need to know who you are. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, whereas sometimes with other cities, it's like they need to kind of know who you are, like to like give you all that love. So that was interesting. Montreal, like we did the whole, going Toronto and Montreal and obviously like Calgary and Edmonton we've done. And yeah, I'm trying to think. That's all I can think of.
What's it like? What are the, does it feel different touring in Europe as opposed to North America?
Yeah.
What are the differences? Big stick outs.
I would say that in Italy, again, there was like this sense of engagement and interaction that was more immediate. People were a little bit more willing to get into that energetic dance with me with less effort from my part. Like, you know, like I was more able to be like, okay, because it's a relationship. Like when you're on stage, of course, as you know, like the more energy that an audience will give you and openness, the more it's like, you know, gives you a superpower. Then all of a sudden you're going to put on like a way better show, you know? And it's like a lot of the times, certain part of the show, unless you're known already, like if they know you and they know your music and they know your lyrics, that's a completely different ball game we're talking about at that point. But when you're like there to make a name for, like, still get people to know who you are and stuff, and they're there to kind of check you out for the first time, I feel like in Italy, just the reception was a lot warmer, faster in the moment, you know? It's like I didn't have to like, it was like they were like, "Oh yeah, like you're here from Canada." Like you're just immediately so welcomed because you're there all the way from somewhere like quite far, you know? And the culture around it essentially is just a little bit different. You know, here I find that, and not everywhere, like obviously I've had some I mean, it's funny because like I can also tell a lot about an artist. Like I've opened for a lot of different artists, and it's really interesting seeing like what kind of fans will be like so warm and welcoming to you, like depending on the artist. That's been really interesting too to observe. Like what type of fan an artist will attract, and then how sort of welcoming they are to the opening band. Like that's been like really interesting
because I've definitely been to some shows. I love seeing the opening bands. I always hate it when I go to a concert with a bunch of friends and they're like, "Oh, we'll pre-drink until like 10 minutes before." I'm like, "No,
you're like,
I paid for a ticket. I want to see as much music as I can."
Totally. The opening man appreciates it.
But but there's a lot of I do find that depending on the style of show, you know, I've been to a lot of shows where the room is empty for the opening act. Oh, and then I've been to some shows where there's just as many people there for the opening act.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
And they're so like warm and wonderful, and so Raveena really stands out. That was probably Raveena and the Boom Booms, because I feel like the Boom Booms and I had a lot of crossover people that we've known just from the city when I played with them at the Commodore. That was one of my favorite shows ever.
Such a great room.
Yeah, I'd never played it before. It was like one of my biggest dreams to play the Commodore.
Oh, really?
So it was like so much fun. And it was like, I felt like the audience was so there for me. And there was like a lot of people, you know, it was like full. And yeah, it was really, that was an incredible experience. Raveena also, like her fans were so warm and so excited and just, like they were, you know, like, I don't know, and then I saw her show and I was like, I get it. I get why you would have fans that would be like kind of mindful and conscious of like people being on stage, you know, giving their, like their hearts, you know, because essentially that's what we're doing. And just sometimes we're just met with like, you know, the best is when it's just like the audience is just like watching and they're just sort of like stone faced. And then after they're like, that was amazing. And you're like, where were you? What happened to you when I was actually singing? Like, it's so fun. You know what I mean? Like, you're like, whoa, people are so, and then that's when I've learned, I mean, as a performer too, though, that's your cue, I feel, to learn, okay, well, how do I help people come out of their shell a little bit so they feel like they can engage with me and express, right? Because I've definitely, I think that's a part of it. That's part of your job too. So I've definitely learned things along the way as far as helping people to open up. Because some places you have to do it more than others, and it is good to be aware of that energy, like when you start to feel it and things you can do to
Yeah, I've also
loosen up the room a little.
Remember when I first started going to shows in my early 20s? No, it was probably my teens. Yeah, I was going to shows in my teens. But I remember when I moved to East Van, which I think I was 19, going to shows. We have something we called the East Van Shuffle. Okay. Which was, I find that it was a joke poking fun at Vancouver audiences, specifically East Van audiences. And this was a lot of indie shows at the time, like indie rock and stuff like that. Because all the hipsters would just stand with their hands in their pockets, like bobbing. And that was it. That was the best that you could get out of a Vancouver audience. Oh, was the East Van Shuffle.
Vancouver is like notorious.
Do you find that as a performer that Vancouver audiences are?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, unless like, yeah, like I find like like they really make you, like they're reserved.
Yeah.
So they don't make you do anything, but they're themselves, I feel, a bit reserved. And it's up to you whether, like, obviously, like, not every artist is up there to kind of create that. You know, some artists are, that's sort of their thing anyways. Like, they get up, they just, like, they do their thing, they perform, and they're not really... You know what I mean? I don't know how to explain, but there's like that singer-songwriter vibe where it's just like they kind of get up. It's like they just sort of emote and they do their thing, and the crowd just like sort of sits there and absorbs, and like that's the style.
And feels the feelings.
Feels the feelings, you know. And
they get me.
I've had those, and I've loved those. I've had those moments. I mean, those shows are really incredible when you can feel that people are really listening. Like that's all you really need. If you just have a captivated audience and they're listening and they're not talking over you, I mean, oh my God, like that's in itself really amazing. And then as like, depending on what genre of music and as you evolve, like, you know, like I remember studying like just different groups being like, I mean, the Booms are a great example because they're one of those bands who like really get the crowd out of themselves, and they do it really successfully every show. Like it's like sort of like weaved into their style of performing. It's like worked in that they're gonna get you involved, you know?
Yeah.
So and I'm sure like I just remember feeling like in New York, that was one of the first times that I was like, because the audience was so easy to play with and talk to, I was like, this is really fun. You know, so then I became more curious of like, how can I create this more? Because I noticed how much energy it gave me, and I would just try different things, and I could hit notes I couldn't hit. Like, it is wild what happens when you in the audience start
start interacting. Yeah.
It's wild. And then you feel that energy, and you're getting the response, and then it's like you become like a sort of superhero like version of yourself, where, you know, you're just like, yeah, it is really wild. So that was like one of the first times I was like, whoa, like, you know, call and response. I would like talk to them, you know, you start joking, like you just like become like, you're like, you just feel a little bit, it feels way more intimate.
I've talked to a lot of artists who have a bit of a love-hate relationship with touring.
Oh yeah,
I find most of them, that most working musicians do.
What do they say?
Well, I've heard many things like, you know, the electricity of being in another city, of you know, coming up on a stage, seeing audiences from you know, feeling a different audience in different towns, learning to play to the different rooms, all the glitz and glamour that you associate with touring, growing up being a fan of music. But you're in, you know, it's like it's like you're in a van with four other people. You don't know where you're sleeping. No. You don't know. You show up thinking that you had like, you know, this gig was putting you up, but actually you're sleeping in the van. The venue that you thought was a venue ended up being someone's living room. All those things of just like the horrors of the actual
all of those things have happened to me.
Yeah.
One of them happened when we were in Italy, where we like got there and they're like, oh, we didn't book you in. We thought we booked you in. And we're like, in Italy, we're like, we don't have a place. Anyway, they did get us in somewhere, but it was just kind of funny because I'm like, we literally have to like get ready for this show in this small bathroom at the venue. Like, there's all these things that happen when you're on the road that are just, you kind of are like, okay.
Do you find it easy to take those things in stride, or do they sometimes hit you?
I mean, I think I found it pretty easy in the past. The only thing that's happened that was hard to digest was when we were in Italy. And oh, I love the story, but we were in Italy and Jan had we finished the gig and we were all, it was like one of the first shows, and I think we were all just like getting our bearings of like being in a different country and on the road together. And it's kind of intense. It's like, especially driving in another country that you don't know. There's like all these random tolls and like really aggressive rules in Italy about like where you can and can't drive. And unless you know, it's like really hard to. Anyway, he went and parked the car, and then, you know, he's like, I'm going to go for a walk. And I'm like, okay. So me and Mike went into the room, and we're just like settling in and went to bed. And I'm like, it's like 5 a.m, like, you know, 6 a.m. I'm like, where are you going? You know, like, then he comes back and he's like, I can't remember where I parked the car. I was like, what? Like, he's like distraught. He's like, I've spent hours.
I can see Jan saying that to you.
He's like, I don't know how to tell you this, but I don't know where the car is. Like, it's like, dude, where's my car? Like, living that reality. And I was like, okay. And he's like, I've literally spent out like, you know, so much money just driving around with this cab driver trying to find this car. Anyway, so yeah, that one took me. We didn't find the car that morning. We walked around looking for it. I was just kind of like a zombie. Like, I was just like, what are we going to do if we don't find this car? Like, what does that mean if we can't find, if we actually lose a whole vehicle? And then part of me's like, did it get stolen? Anyway, so we ended up we had to rent another car, which was like this small Panda. And like,
but you rented another car because you couldn't find?
No, we just had to, because we needed to get to the next show. So we had to just abort the mission. The next day you
aborted the vehicle.
At that moment.
Because
we were like, we need to, it was our tour.
This is good. I just want the details.
The tour manager was like not that helpful in that. He was like, well, you have a gig. So can you get to the gig is all I need to know. And we're like, okay. Like, so basically we had a day off the next day. So we're like, let's go to the show. Let's do the show and we'll drive whatever it was. I don't even know how many hours. Because we were like, we have enough time to go back to that town, do a good look. We've had a night's sleep. We don't have a gig to get to, and then drive to the next location after we find it. So I had to perform that night. I remember just being like, what a weird, but it was like one of the best performances because I feel like there was just all this like just raw, weird energy to transmute. And I was like, fuck it. We're going to give it all on this show, you guys. Like, we're all just kind of weirdly like stressed and like, you get like, you're just like pissed at the situation. And then it kind of comes out and everyone's like a little tense. And I was obviously like, I just remember like not like trying to hold it in. And then I was like downstairs in the dressing room getting ready, just like kind of crying and like, am I going to be like, how much money is this like going to cost me? You know what I mean? Like, we're just breaking even. And then the hotel manager like sees me. He's like, are you okay? And I was like, it's good. And then he like went up to the guys and he was like, is your singer okay? What's wrong with her? And they're like, it's okay. We just lost our car. He's like, oh, no, nobody stole it. It's there. So then we went back the next day and we figured out the boys actually figured out a method. They got a map and they were like, we'll cross systematic. And they got bikes and they found the car. So all is well that ends. Well, and then we were like, this is our story. This is our tour story. We've got through it. And it was like at the
That's a good story. I
mean, it was hilarious.
And if Jan is listening, if it makes him feel any better, I lose my car in the West End all the time.
Okay.
You're
not alone, Jan.
There are only 2 streets that I like as often as possible. Only 2 streets that I allow myself to park on. Because if I park in any other spot, I'll forget where I parked. My girlfriend keeps trying to tell me to get an air tag for the car.
Or just a Google map it. Like you can just put in your phone, like you can just mark, I parked here.
You have to remember to do that.
Yeah,
which
often
clearly. Like I have two spots that I can usually find a spot within those two, but occasionally I have to park somewhere else. And
I've lost my car in the West End too.
And I don't,
so don't feel bad. I've totally done that.
Yeah.
So,
and then you're like, I was like, did it get towed?
exactly, right? It's like,
How do you know?
did my car get stolen? Like, it's like,
that was another thing. I was like, well, maybe our car got towed. Like, we're in Italy with all these like weird parking rules. Like what it was, there was all these, and when you're in another country, like trying to get help from the Italians, useless.
Right.
Love you guys. But their like bureaucratic system.
They also didn't care that 3 Canadians lost their car.
No, they don't care. No, they're like, are you
Yeah.
going to be at the gig or
Yeah.
what's okay? Like,
Yeah. So earlier in the beginning of the interview, you mentioned being, wishing you had like a mentor as a 20-year-old
yeah.
coming into the scene.
Yes, that was a woman. I had mentors, but just not.
There was a woman.
Yeah, that was a woman. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Is
think that
there,
would've been helpful.
what would you offer after, the decade of experience you've had
That's a good question.
to that same kid, other than don't lose your car in Italy?
I don't. I think I would offer, I'm trying to think of what I would offer. I think I would offer I think more space to just try, like to try different things and to not take it, so seriously too. I think also just asking more questions, like being more curious. Like I would have loved to have a woman make me feel a bit more welcome in certain parts of the process. You know what I'm saying? A little bit more encouraged to be self-sufficient, not because you want to do everything by yourself, but like we were talking about before, like the more understanding and language you have, the more you can communicate your ideas in a way that feels clear. And I think, just that kind of like, just that space to just, I mean, I don't know how to put it exactly. I mean, that's definitely something to think about. That's a good question. Cause like, I'm like trying to think of what exactly I would have needed. I think, also it's just like when it's a woman, it's like, there's no, you would be a little bit safer to explore certain things, even in your lyricism. Not safer. I mean, safer is the wrong word, but I think a little bit more able to express certain things and certain ideas without thinking of how they were being received by like a man. That's obviously just like a completely different dynamic. Like when women are together, it's, the conversation is different. The energy dynamics are different. And
You guys are talking about men the whole time, right?
that's all we talk about.
That's what the movies told me.
Say. Yeah. I mean, just having, I think just like, just more women in the space, more of that energy, seeing, and seeing more women in the roles of like, of a producer too. I mean, I think like there's this, I think that would have been really empowering to just like see, to like have somebody that had done it and had like been through some things. Cause I feel like, I kind of, at the beginning of my career, like I said, like it was a lot of shit, like, just trying on different things, that's fine too. It's just, I think, it was a little bit, I was very aware of the male gaze. I'll just say that. I was very aware of the male gaze. I was very aware of that. And I think like it would have been nice to have a woman to like relax that a bit. And I was very aware of how I was being perceived. And I think when you're very aware of how you're being perceived as a young woman who wants to like make it in an industry, you know what I mean? Like I think that can affect your ability to express and be comfortable in your expression and just feel like what you have to bring is already, imperfectly perfect in a sense. You know what I mean? Like, if that makes sense.
Would you find, the opportunity to be what you wanted as a 20-year-old? Would you find the opportunity to be that to somebody daunting, or would that be something that would be like, would you willingly take that mantle at some later stage in your career or whatever?
Yeah, like I've already done some work with, like, I've done some songwriting with like some teenage girls and recorded them and done some, done some sort of like workshops and classes with like young girls and just songwriting with them and helping them to express and articulate their ideas and learn about their voice. And that's been really amazing. Like even honestly, like just having a woman record you as a young woman is like, I think in itself really powerful, because it's like, it's such an intimate thing as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you
like,
mentioned being very conscious of the male gaze too, right? That's
like it's such an intimate thing. Like
singing is such a vulnerable thing.
It's such a vulnerable thing. And I think when you're just kind of learning, and the thing that happens too, I mean, at least personally I can speak, is like you start to associate like your talent and your ability to create with somebody, with the person who's producing and recording with you. Like before I worked with Chen, I mean, the first producer that I worked with, it was just like, there was this really like sense of like, I found you and I'm, creating, like, I'm such a part of your development. And like, there was like this, there's that vibe. And I think as like a young artist, it's easy to get, almost like addicted, or is that the word? Like really look for that validation from the person who's recording you, from the person who's helping you along the journey. And then, it's just like a vulnerable position to be in, I think. So even just having more women in the space, I think is a positive. I mean, we've all heard of all like the vibes and the stories, and like that does exist, and it's just, and you're talking about your feelings and you're like talking about your very personal stories of your life. And so I think just having somebody advocate for you and like who,
You talk a little bit earlier, you talked about the discovering the love of collaborating and really leaning into that with some of your more recent writings.
Yes.
Are there you've collaborated with obviously with a lot of men over the years, as you mentioned earlier.
Yes.
Are there some like bucket list women that you would like kill to collaborate with?
Oh, I mean,
don't actually kill anybody, but like
that I would kill. Like dreamist of like biggest dream of dreams, favorite artist. I mean, okay, let me just Feist.
I love her. She's amazing.
Like one of the reasons why I make music now. Love her.
Yeah.
Just every show that I've ever seen of her. She's also just one of those people. It's like multi-instrumentalist, like so confident in her craft. So, her own, and I'm sure she had to deal with a lot of I'm sure she dealt with her own version of BS. And I just feel like she held so strong to who she is, even after she became so famous. She kind of was like, okay, like cool, but I'm still going to do just my weird thing, when she did Medals. I really, Janelle Monáe. Yeah. She's like, I love her artistry and her creativity. And again, also her, like the way she talks about women and empowers women and champions them. And that's a couple. I feel I would like on a more local note, I will shout out Nada. I'd love to I know those girls from before, and they actually recently came to Salt Spring and did a show, and it was incredible. And I was like, I I'm excited, hopefully at one point in the future, to collaborate with them in some way, which could be which it was just really fun to watch them and their lyrics. And I love that they're completely self-produced, and, you know, like everything's done by them, which is like, again, really like, I'm like, that's so great for them and for other women to see that. And I just love that there's more of that now happening. I feel like there is way more of that now.
Well, I look forward to all of your collabs and all of your solo ventures, and
thank you.
The album that's going to drop soon that I'm going to get to listen to before everybody else.
Yes, totally.
You've got a show September 21st on Salt Spring Island.
Yeah, at Mateata.
More dates to come.
Yes,
much more to come. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to sign off with a little sip.
I'll have a little sip too. Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank you for having me.